Let's talk about real Judaism. Sadly, Zionists have inflicted Jewish people around the world with more anti-Semitism than we've seen since before World War II. And what it's doing is putting this huge cloud of darkness over a tumultuous but beautiful history. The first thing that Zionists have done is separate religions with clear black and white lines. They're of course not the only ones who have done this, but their narrative has so many people thinking that there was a nation of Israel 2,000 years ago that was destroyed by the Romans, and now they're bringing it back. The real story is like everything else in history, complicated, but remarkably better. For starters, the persecution of the Jewish people by the Romans at the end of the first century wasn't just Judaism. There were Christians and other sects as well. See, the Romans built Christianity on Pauline Christianity. It's why the Bible looks the way that it does. But as you see in Paul's own letters, he doesn't always agree with the actual disciples of Jesus Christ. James, the brother of Jesus, Peter, and John, the one who Jesus loved. They were the heads of Christianity in Jerusalem, not Paul. But it also wasn't really Christianity. And it wasn't entirely separate from Judaism. In fact, Jewish historian Josephus says more about James, the brother of Jesus, than he does about Jesus himself. James was the well-known head of the movement in Jerusalem, and he was well-liked by most people, even many Jewish leaders. This is because it wasn't a religion. When you get a chance, go read the book of James for me. And for that matter, 1st and 2nd Peter and 1st John, 2nd John, 3rd John. Look at what they talk about more than anything else, the redistribution of wealth. This is because it wasn't a religion. It was an egalitarian political movement centered on God, of course, but that can be applied to any civilization. I mention this because when you mix this with the ancient history of Israel itself, you get an injection of egalitarianism that the world has never seen before. Philosophies that were developed in ancient Israel and then spread to the world by Jesus and his followers. And we can see ripples of this in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam and Mormonism for that matter. A love-centered political philosophy. Jesus said it himself, that is what the kingdom of heaven is. If you want to be a part of it, you have to do these things to be a part of it on earth. Not some magic white cloud in the sky. Sadly, these movements are clouded by some of the worst horrors in human history, but they're also what led us to today. When the Jewish people were ultimately expelled by the Romans, they created communities all over the world. And there was no such thing yet as Zionism. In fact, quite the opposite. Remember, in the Bible and the Torah, whenever something like this happens to the Jewish people, it's because they're being punished. And because of this, trying to reestablish a nation in the land of Israel, Palestine, was considered a sin by most rabbis. And when Zionism did ultimately develop, most saw it as just rich people escapism. Because in their minds, Jews had already reached the highest level of national evolution, one that no longer needed a physical state to survive. And so instead, they fought for rights in their home nations. But it wasn't just limited to them. They believed that God said that this should extend to everybody. In 1897, the first year of the Zionist Congress, another organization also started, the Bund. Their tagline was civil rights, socialism, and worker liberation. How do you think the Nazis equated them with communists? Because they were a threat to their preferred oligarchical social order, along with anyone who agreed with them. And it's really hard to underestimate just how remarkable this is, because the natural human reaction would be Zionism to something like that. Because the moment the Jews were expelled, they faced thousands of years of intense persecution. And yet most of them still fought for peace and equality. It's a lot like the story of Black Americans and how thankful we should be that they remained largely nonviolent. And then sadly, the Holocaust happened. And most of the people killed were not those capitalist Zionists. It was working class Jews that embodied progressive beliefs. But thankfully, the Nazis didn't eliminate it completely. After 1967, a new wave of anti-Zionist Jewish organizations were developed. Organizations like the American Jewish Committee that prioritized integration into Western societies rather than Zionism. Today, organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace and publications like the Jewish Current are trying to reclaim this historic Judaism, but Zionists are making it nearly impossible. I was working for a Democratic member of Congress during the pro-Palestinian protests under Biden. And no joke, 90% of the people that came to protest in support of the Palestinian people at our office were Jewish. One day, about a dozen Jewish people came in and read every single Palestinian name that died that they could all day. One of the best ways that we can fight back against the Zionist Israeli government that's in charge right now is by spreading this message, the real message of Judaism, and it's the real message of all world religions. You just don't need the religion part. We just need to all be human together.